I'd like to welcome everybody to the Intentional Living podcast. As you can see, it's my colleague and Goomba, John Donovan, here with me, Marty Keller. And those of you who've been following us for some time see we have our special guest and friend, Ron Kastner, who's joining us today. Normally,
Yeah.
he's in London, but in the summer, he spends time in New York. And I don't know if you can see that. Those of you watching us can see that beautiful sunlight coming off of Ron's right shoulder there, but he's out on the bay in Long Island, the North Fork of Long Island, and I've had the chance to visit him there. It's a beautiful place, and so welcome, Ron.
Thank you.
And to those of you who are here for the first time, the Intentional Living podcast focuses on identifying and breaking patterns of behavior that we say we don't want, and for some reason keep showing up anyway. These this We may have a thought in our minds that I'm not going to do that. Like John says, I might find myself in an argument and realize I'm on the wrong side of it and stick with it anyway.
Yeah.
Uh, or it could be a behavior that I say I'm going to do and don't do it. I may say I'm not going to have that drink, and I find myself drinking it anyway. So
Right.
we have these patterns of behavior that are part of our humanity, and the intentional living process is a way for us to identify those and decide whether we want them. And if we want to change them, how do we do that? How do we befriend these patterns and turn them in a different direction? And John's intentional living process is a way to do that. And that's what we discuss here on this podcast. Um, Ron has been a part of us for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years now, been part of our podcast. He comes in and for those of you who don't know, I'm going to put it up on the screen. He's the author of a book, which is a very wonderful and powerful book called A Life Yet to Live, Finding Health, Vitality, and Joy After 60. And so the book has been out how long now, Ron?
Probably about a year and a half.
Okay. So
I'm
I just love the
I'm in the
cover. No,
I'm starting to work on another one, so
okay.
I'll
You
talk
can,
about
you
that.
can tell us about that. Yeah. So for those of you who would be interested, and Ron's going to talk a little bit about what the book is. It's on Amazon. You can get your copy that way, and through other distributors as well. So A Life Yet to Live, author Ron Kastner. Welcome, and would love to just catch up with what have you been up to? What's going on with the book? What?
Well, to make this full circle and bring it back to the work that you and John do, which I have been a part of. I go to John's weekly meeting, uh, not all the time, but I'm there. And I've known John for longer than the 4 or 5 years that we've been doing the podcast, and I've known you forever. um, the the way I experience it, when I make an intention to fix a pattern of behavior that I don't want anymore, or I feel is destructive, or or disempowering, or whatever, um, I have to let it go to a place inside me that I can't control. And I have to let it go to um, a place where some other power is making that happen, is making that happen. And so, so with that in the back of your mind, um, my book started with a moment of inspiration almost 20 years ago now, where I said to myself at the end of my 50s, I was about 58, I think, um, and I'm 75 now. And my book started with a moment of inspiration saying, I have two infant daughters, and if I don't look after my health, they are going to grow up with an aging, um, uh, non-vital dad. And my own dad died when I was, this all came as like a moment of a flash from
Yeah.
the same place that I just mentioned,
Yes.
a place that I don't control. So I just want to acknowledge the power of that place. That place inside us, inside me, is, more powerful than anything I could do consciously. So I used that moment years ago to to begin a journey of later life health that I write about in the book. And thank God my daughters are going on 18 and 21 now. They are amazing young adults. And I'm just so grateful, that I've been there um, to be their dad and to be part of their lives. And they have given me more than a hell of a lot more than I've given them. Um, but I want to acknowledge that place because that brings me to the new book that I'm writing at 75. I had no idea I'd be here 17 or 18 or 20 years later. But where I find myself is a lot closer to my mortality. I find myself a lot more um, involved with health than I ever was before. And everybody else always said I do too much anyway, but now I'm doing even more because health
Mhm.
is really all that matters at this age. Um, and when I say health, I mean, staying functional, staying healthy, staying out of the doctor's office, as much as possible, staying off of drugs, um, and um, and being functional. You know,
Mhm.
uh, so so that's what I've dedicated myself to. But it all comes from this place inside me. And that's what the name of the book, the new book, the working title of the new book is um, The Power and Grace of Later Life. Because what later life, and subtitled um, uh, A Post 60 Guide to Health, Longevity, and Wonder. I want to put the wonder in there because that is the wonder is what comes from um, this wonderful place inside me. It is where healing starts. It is where the power of life is. It is where the power of the universe is. It has become everything to me. And it's difficult to access in today's modern world because we are so diverted. There's so many things to do. There's so many diversions. There's so many ways to keep our minds active. And this is not a mental place. This is not a place where we can think our way through this stuff.
Right.
And what the grace part of the book, that in the title, is that I have been allowed to appreciate something in later life that I have never experienced. You know, a couple of months ago, John said something in one of his meetings. He said, "No, I never felt like I was enough." And it was like a bell went off inside me. And I went, wow, that's
Mm.
exactly what I feel like. That's exactly what I felt like. And I've spent my life feeling not enough and compensating for it. And I mean, my resume is like, as a Broadway producer and a London producer, and I had a company and I owned restaurants, just like boom, 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 one success after another. And I went from one high to another to another. And then in the middle were like deep lows, you know, I'm not enough. I'm not enough. I got to do more. I got to do more. And that just hit me like a ton of bricks. And I realized that the only solution to that through the intentional living stuff that I spoke with John about um, was to appreciate this power of life inside me, this power of healing, this power of life. Um, and like I said, this is not a place where you can think your way through this. At least
No.
I can, I can't. It is visceral. It is beyond words. It is, you know, and 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 the more I do this work, the more I have access to it, and the more wonderful it is. So, you know,
Yeah.
um, doesn't mean it's great 100% of the time. You know,
No.
we have to acknowledge our suffering in order to appreciate, what's good. But that is that's the shorthand version of what I've been going through recently. So I'll open that up to you guys and we can talk about it.
That was powerful. Um, in that the most difficult part of this process is to get out of your head and just like we have a practice called the accountability tree and do it. Just do the do the practice, and this insight comes. It comes through, and trying to explain it to, and I do it a lot. Explain it to somebody who's just met me for the first time, and telling them I have a way out of whatever they're struggling with, and then talking about how it works and repeating myself. The the mechanism that had me in a pattern of behavior was I call it family of origin dysfunction, childhood trauma that was unresolved. So to cope with that, I developed patterns. Mine were codependency, alcoholism, and other types of workaholic, rageaholic.
Sure.
And I found I couldn't move through it until I accepted the fact that I was an alcoholic. I am an alcoholic. And when I said it without blame or judgment, the mind criticizing it, just saying it as data, there's something in that statement that accesses that thing you're talking about, that subconscious place, quiet. And I found relief. And at the same time, in that raising of awareness, I thought about, created an intent about what I wanted to replace this pattern with. Like, for example, I owned that I was mean to the point of cruelty, took the breath, I intend to be kind. And that goes back into that subconscious place that you're talking about that enables me to, brings to me
Yeah.
experiences with this focus that that broaden my
Yeah.
perspective, my feeling tone inside. So yeah, that was
I mean, I've heard you say 100 times, let it come.
yeah,
And then
yeah,
people sometimes get frustrated that nothing's
yeah,
coming.
yeah.
And you may make some suggestions at that point, but
Hmm.
but you also usually say, if it doesn't come right now, it will.
Yeah, yeah,
You've asked this play, you've asked the universe, and this
yeah.
place is the universe. This place
Right,
is
right. Yeah,
the same energy that powers the sun.
right.
This place
Yeah,
is, and it's universal and it's cosmic and it's physical and visceral and everything else. You can put all the words in the world to it. Um, but it is the source of inspiration inside us that we can't control, you know.
yeah. yeah,
So
that moves through us. Yeah, I refer to it quantum field, the
yeah,
universe,
we can
source
guide it. We
energy.
can help guide it, but
Um,
we can't, you know.
right, right,
And sometimes it's going to say to us, "No, you had some. You want to go this way? No, we're not going that way."
right. I tell people to when they create the intent, whatever their picture is of what that is, like my idea of kindness. When I get to where I experience kindness, it had nothing to do with what I thought it was. It's
Absolutely.
an embodiment of something that I had no idea how to manifest. But the intent opens me up. It's like in the Urantia, uh, what I read in there, you make the decision, the universe will handle the rest. You decide you want to do something, and then the universe musters in your favor.
Yes,
So, yeah,
I like that. I
yeah,
like that.
In our practice, one of the things that we've done over the past 2 or 3 years is we've created a list of what we call principles, accountability practical
Hmm.
practice principles. One of the principles is that the quality of my life is determined by the focus of my attention. And it's
right,
that, and so that the power of creating an intention is an act of focusing. And it's like focusing like a magnifying glass, focusing the light of the sun on something to turn it into a flame. We're focusing that universal energy toward what we say we want,
Hmm.
because the universal energy by itself is kind of like Schrodinger's box. It's just potential. It's we activate it through these acts of will and intention. And
Hmm.
so, and then another principle that we have, just to go along with what you said earlier, Ron, is that it doesn't have to make sense. And
Nope.
particularly, it doesn't have to make sense of the rational mind, because the rational mind is never going to figure this stuff out on its own terms.
No.
And so the other reason I like the accountability practice, John, is because its evidence is in the doing. The
yeah,
evidence is in the take is in doing the accountability tree and then seeing what happens.
right,
It's not something, it's like Ron, you were saying, it's not something I can think myself to. I can't generate a conceptual
Yeah.
description of this. That's a waste of time. That's why we often say when people will say, why do I do this? And say, well, family
If
of
it
origin dysfunction, childhood trauma. Now that you know, does that make any difference?
and it works for some people better than others.
Yeah.
And
hmm
I mean, I have hundreds of things I've tried in my health practice that didn't work. That
right,
again, you know what? I'm not doing this anymore. And I have a few basic things that have. So, and
Well, in a
so
certain way that
it has to be experiential.
exactly. And John, you and I talked about in a couple of our podcasts recently, we talked about why are we doing this?
hmm
Why are we taking on these recovery practices? Intentional living can be AA, it can be adult children of alcoholics, it can be yoga practices, it can be. I have a friend who swears by her Pilates practice as a method for getting past the mind and
Hmm.
into something more embodied. So it doesn't really matter because it's all about that focus of attention. What am I? Where? How am I focusing on what I want? Um, so when we have this ability to just sink into it by
Well,
just through our what we'd say we want. Again, this whole I never had any clue of this practice until I came across John. And also, how did I come across John? It's kind of like, how did you start your book?
yeah.
It was a similar intuitive hit that John was doing some stuff with other guys in our men's group at my church, and I just had this moment. It's like I want to find out what this guy's doing. I want to know more about
Yeah,
what.
this interests me. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I set an appointment with them. I don't know if you remember. We met my memory is we met at that Starbucks over by the Safeway on 19th Street and S
hmm
in
hmm
Midtown Sacramento, and
yeah,
we
yeah,
talked about. And out of that, we uh, we decided John would do a workshop, and we invited all the men to it. And once I experienced the workshop, I said, I want John to be the facilitator of our men's group. And so that it was a similar kind of, if you'd have told me 3 minutes before I had that idea that we would be doing this today,
Yeah, it was not even in the
I would have
scope.
said,
Yeah,
what?
not neither. I
Well, my sorry, go ahead, John.
my moment came when I went to a violence intervention class in the community, facilitated by this guy named Pete, and he when we got there, he said, "This is a group for violent men," and then he explained emotional violence, verbal violence, and then the physical violence. And then he said that will something like, I'm going to paraphrase, that will continue until you can reach some kind of accountability. And when he said that, I had that flush. It was like, oh my God, he's telling me how to move to enlightenment. I didn't understand. I had no facts about that. I just, okay, I'm here. I sat there for just, uh, I'm going to do this. And from that, all this other things have happened. That was in 1998 that I had that feeling tone that this was, and then all of this has come together since then. So
I mean, I
amazing.
just to say, to answer Marty's question of why we do this, why I do this is the overcoming trauma and looking at my past and family of origin stuff,
Mm-hmm.
which I've done over most of my life, um, induces the same healing that I get when I exercise, for instance. It induces the same power of healing and life. And this, and it, when the trauma is active, it covers that. It keeps healing suppressed.
Yeah,
And healing is such a universal physical, emotional, spiritual force within us that there again comes from the power of life that we all have. And it unfortunately remains largely hidden. It remains largely under the surface. It remains largely covered. We're not conscious of it. We
right.
take we take it for granted. Um, and I know in my practice, I find that I can induce it and I can extend it. Not forever, I know, but so far so good. It's
Yeah, yeah,
working. It's working okay. So, but it is all intermixed with that engaging with healing for me, which cures trauma, which cures my the beginnings of my osteoarthritic knee.
mm-hmm.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
it cures everything, you know, if you can muster the power, you
Yeah,
know, and it's there. So
Well, then for me, the beauty of the accountability practice is it starts to teach us how to do that
yes.
because it needs to move from a nice theoretical Emersonian essay on self-reliance to, what about right now?
Yeah.
Um, I've got, I not only have osteoarthritis in my knee, but I'm pissed off at the guy across the hall who keeps making noise
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
the guy cut me off in traffic and God damn it. And so the accountability practice is a practical way that the one that's worked best for me. Again, I'm not saying it's the only one,
no,
but it's the one that works best for me. And it's because I start with my physical reality. It's that groundedness. It's like
Yeah.
the body is in the Bible, in the first book of the Bible in Genesis, God made the body out of dirt. He breathed life into dirt. So we're this the body is the way that we're grounded and connected to the physical reality you were talking about earlier, Ron.
Yeah.
And so and like you also said, our mind, we've moved into this mental age right now, the modern age, where our mind can actually stop us from feeling. Our
Yep.
mind can deflect awareness of the grounded body that is always pulsating and blood's moving through it, and nerves are delivering messages, and we're receiving information from outside through the senses, and it's processing all this stuff, and I can make myself blissfully unaware, no
Yep.
problem. And
Mhm.
so the accountability practice always starts with, how am I feeling? How am I feeling? And that, again, it, I don't have the words to say how radical that was for me, and how radically different that allowed me to create the life I want.
Yep. Yep.
So that groundedness in that feeling. So every meeting that I facilitate, we always start, and I know you do, John, with the feelings check-in. How am I feeling? And I often work with people who will say, well, I feel confused. And I go, where in your body do you feel confusion? Let's stick with actual physical sensation. And not because anyone's wrong to say I feel confused, it's because we haven't taught ourselves to actually feel the feelings in the body. What's the adrenal glands secreting? What's going on with my heart rate? What's going on with my galvanic skin response? What's going
Hmm.
on with the flushing of my face, or those things? Fundamental physical feelings that are always being produced. I mean, right now, all three of us are having feelings in our bodies that we can pay attention, but we have to focus
Yeah.
to feel them. So I can sit here, like right now, I just did a scan of what's going on with my legs. I can do that. But until I'd said that, I wasn't paying any attention to what was going on in my legs.
But it's
Yeah.
interesting. It's interesting. You can, and this goes back to a lot of the stuff in the in the accountability practice. Once you try to keep your mind quiet, and you just take a few breaths, all of a sudden you can feel everything that's going on in your body at once. At once,
Mhm.
all of a sudden. I mean, I just did it now as you were talking. I just went quiet, and I felt some stuff in my legs and my shoulders, and all of a sudden. And it's a very simple thing to access if we just have the intention to do it.
And simple and almost impossible. Having like for me, having lived a life out of my body, in my head, and what does that got to do with anything? I mean, tell me what this, just tell me what to do, and I'll get it done. It's like one of the techniques I use is like we in this society, we've all taken the word feel and implanted it where it really doesn't belong. Like, I feel confused. Well, if you change that word feel with think and it still makes sense, it's not a feeling. Like, I think I'm confused. Oh, if I think I'm confused, where do I feel that? And it's that getting into that body sensation is quite a hurdle. It's quite a hurdle, just because of the language we have. And in my practice, I do my best. It's like finding out what that true statement is. We create intents, and we create those intents from an awareness place of the actual pattern that I find myself in. Like, hi, my name's John. I'm an alcoholic. That's acknowledging the pattern and saying it and taking a breath gets me out of my head where my judgment and blame is, where I find excuses or reasons, and just feel the truth of that statement, which is in alignment with that subconscious trauma. I remember saying it in the group, and this was 37 years ago. Hi, my name is John. I'm an alcoholic, and I was in a room with no blame or judgment. Everybody else in the room, they may even have clapped. And I felt this something inside, and I didn't know at the time. I didn't like ferret it out. My next thought was, I'm coming back. So it was like, I intend to come back. And that all happened internal with me without any kind of rational
Yeah,
explanation. Um,
you began to heal.
yeah.
I mean, that
Hmm.
going back to Marty said he has a friend who does Pilates and that helps her access, whatever.
Hmm.
It's the old, body keeps the score stuff,
Hmm.
which the Bessel van der Kolk stuff, or Alice Miller wrote a book called The Body Never Lies, same kind of thing.
Right. Yeah.
This stuff gets trapped inside you, and it's
Yeah.
not good and it's not good for your health.
No,
You know, it's
no,
not
no.
good for your health. So anyway,
But so you let's go back to the book. So for the perspective of, it says for people over 60, but it's really a universal book. But clearly the
yeah.
emphasis was for people who've lived as long as we have, and now you got a new one for people who've lived as long as we have. It coming out. It's great.
Well, it's not going to be done for a while. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
but um, but I think that it's worth emphasizing that the theme of the book is what we're talking about here. It's this unity of the body and the mind. Um,
yeah,
that we're we're not just a body and we're not just a mind. We're actually an integrated unit for which we really don't have good language. I mean,
yep.
Ken Wilber, who's one of my gurus, talks about the body mind. It's like as close as he could get to generating an awareness of this unit, this unified unit. Um, as you both know, we have a meeting we call the gut check meeting on Wednesdays, where we actually the inquiry is, can the accountability practice help me heal physical ailments?
Hmm.
And when we just do the same thing that we do with our emotional stuff that we work on, it's like feel the feeling. This is John. You probably appreciate this, Ron. You probably too. Is this seems to be most powerful, effective for people with back pain. So it's like feel the feeling. Just sit there and feel.
Yeah,
And usually it's lower back pain that people are complaining about. So okay, just let the feeling come, and
John Sarno.
exactly feel it. And now, what do you want? And answering that question is often a challenge for people. It's like, what do you want? Well, I don't
Yeah.
want to feel this way. Yeah, okay. The universe doesn't really work off what you don't want. So, how do we characterize what we want in terms of physical experience, physical feeling in our lower back? Eventually, people will find something that is congruous with what they want, and then they'll come back a week later and they go, you know what? I my back hasn't been hurting as much,
Right.
and it's because the body and the mind are a unified activity, a dynamic. Again, see, look, I'm struggling for words here. Um,
It's tough. Yeah.
Well, John Sarno and his followers, um, in many of his books and all their practice, have done a lot of that. There's such a deep relationship between anger mainly and back pain.
right,
And he also said back pain has become the disease du jour because so many people have it. And everybody says, well, it's because we've been sitting too much and this, that, and the other thing. But you know what? This guy took a few days off because he had a back problem. So, it's probably okay if I have a back problem and I can take a few days off, that sort of stuff. But he also said, and this is the difficulty with this work, I find. Um, he also said only 20% of the people he treated were amenable to even thinking that this was somehow emotional, even though he was pretty convinced that
Mhm.
100% of people, you know, they just wouldn't go there.
Right.
They wanted painkillers They wanted physiotherapy. They wanted cortisone. They wanted surgery and the 80%. And they wouldn't go there. And there's a giant level of resistance to this stuff, you know, that we don't, that we have in society that we just don't, I don't know what the answer is, but it exists. It exists. So,
I think I don't know the answer either, but I do know it's one day at a time. It's like
yeah,
every time you or I or John share these ideas and experiences with another person, we're starting to, it's the propagation of an idea. And then human beings have been doing this since, I mean, some guys sat around and started reciting something we call the Upanishads 3,000
yeah.
years ago. And that idea is still around today. So it's just a question of propagating it. I want to mention for anybody who's watching this for the first time, we're talking about a medical doctor in New York named John Sarno, Sarno, and
Yeah.
you can find him on YouTube and you can find some of his books on Amazon. But he did do a lot of research on the relationship between unrepressed rage and back pain.
Yeah.
But I also want to point out that later in his life, he extended his insight to not just back pain, but chronic illnesses of almost every variety
Absolutely.
may
Absolutely.
also have a deeply psychological origin. So,
He
like
was
I have,
also he was also a top rehabilitative doctor at NYU. I mean, he's not a quack,
right,
you know.
Right.
right.
So
I have some insight into why the 80/20. And my theory is based in 12-step literature that the family of origin dysfunction, childhood trauma, unresolved, we survived the trauma. So my body, mind, spirit, this mechanism wants me to survive. So the mechanism is subjective, and it will recreate my family of origin trauma in order, and the goal is to keep me alive. Now, this mechanism, I call it the reticular activating system, hooked into the survival mechanism, fed by a myriad of traumas. In order to live through that, we needed to dampen our feelings, to freeze, to stuff things. So that became the way we survived, and then we grow up, find ourselves in these patterns. I had alcohol equals life. So for me to to survive, I had to keep suppressing the trauma. Alcohol worked, raging worked, workaholic worked, and this energy that is feeding my survival mechanism from the subconscious pool of trauma, I see it as a benevolent energy, only it has been misinformed.
yeah,
And for me to break that um, survival need, that's where the accountability tree comes in. We say the truth of where we find ourselves. Like one of my examples again is I'm mean to the point of cruelty. When I say that with blame free, judgment free, it validates the motivation to manifest mean to the point of cruelty. And in my childhood, the people that said they loved me the most hurt me the most. So it doesn't even make sense. And so I say the truth, and I see encoded in that the trauma that and the belief or the perception that caused me to the point of cruelty. And when I say the truth without blame or judgment, it's like I'm receiving what I didn't get as a child. Like, oh, John, at 2 years old, I see you're angry, or I see you're rambunctious, or I see you're afraid, and I understand, and I'm here with you. I didn't get that. So the actual feeling of fear needed to be repressed. Alcohol, codependency, rageaholic, workaholic work. So when I'm in this process of just saying the truth and blame free, judgment free, that's me accepting myself here right now, even though the truth of that statement is that it causes separation. Loneliness is destructive. It impacts the people around me and myself and my health. All that's true. And there's a relief. The emotion happens of awareness. And in that state of higher awareness, like, oh my, yeah, of course. Then I feel the impact of all that specific behavior. No, I intend to be kind. That's the power center. And then the subconscious now has I intend to be kind in it. And just like it manifested mean to the point of cruelty for me, it will manifest kindness. It will bring me the experiences and awareness and the open perception that I now have around my behavior. And things are
But I
different.
think what you're saying, if I understand it correctly, is that it's the reticular activating system that keeps people in the 80%.
Yes.
They don't want to
Yeah.
go. They just
Yeah.
don't want. They
Right.
don't
Well,
want to go there, and it takes a lot of work to change that.
Yeah. And the good news about people that come to the intentional living when they become willing to either risk or do the accountability tree themselves, they actually that's an experience that they have inside of them, that they may not be able to explain, but they feel something different.
Yeah.
And then after they do it a while, one of my favorite questions is, what's different? Based on this work, based on your willingness to heal, what have you noticed different? And they'll give me instances where they would have that pattern would have came up and it didn't. They did something else. Like instead of raging, they took a breath. That's
Yeah.
different. And then they build on that. So
Yeah.
I was going to say, I'm going to add that part of the 80-20 conundrum is that everything that you just expressed, John, is chemicalized in the physical body. So the way I express it is I'm addicted to my family of origin body chemistry.
yes.
And it's not just a thought, it's an embodied feeling. There's a part of me that's always trying to get back there for survival purposes.
Mm-hmm.
But again, the body mind's a unit, so we can use the power of intention, which is a conscious thought. I intend to feel at ease. I intend to feel comfortable in my own skin. I intend to feel peaceful. I intend to feel kind. All those things, to begin to reprogram the body chemistry, because it's what makes it daunting for us is that it's what we talk about, the demystifying behavior. Why am I doing things when my mind says I don't want to do this? I shouldn't be doing this, and I can't control the craving to do something which I can judge as destructive. I can judge it as pushing people away. And
I'm
so
bad.
again, that's why I wish there were more John Sarno trained people who are skilled at supporting the recovery in both mind and body simultaneously
Yeah.
to assist with that detoxification of the old family of origin body chemistry addiction.
Yeah. There's one book I just read by a guy named Dan Ratner, Ratner, called Crushing Doubt. And he's a second generation Sarno follower. And it's a really good book. And he basically says the reason most people don't want to go to that place is because they're afraid of it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
they don't want to, it's just not held at a premium, and
No.
there's all kinds of up psychology and this, that, and the other thing. But the real work most people don't want to do.
And the actual feeling of whatever you're experiencing, I could say feeling of being alive, became the enemy of the child. If they were in a
Yeah.
spontaneous, they were going to get lambasted somehow, so they had to pay attention to what's out there so that they didn't get hurt in here, and that became the pattern.
Yeah.
And it's terrifying sometimes. People, I'm terrified. Yeah, yes, yeah. That's a statement of
And then
inner child.
you ask yourself, what's on the other side of the trauma?
Mm-hmm.
And it's pretty wonderful, I have to
Yeah,
say, you know,
yeah.
because it's the same stuff you were born with.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to
That's
say, it's
not,
ironic that it's the life force that generates the defense. The life
Yep.
force is what keeps me safe, but it's the life force that we're looking to liberate to
Yep.
into this unfettered experience of the life force. So
yep,
it's almost like life against life, and
yep,
that whole sense that John, you talked about, you've talked about today and regularly about, hi, I'm John, I'm an alcoholic. There's that sort of like both life forces come together
yep,
and generate that relief, that sense of, it's a sense of unity. I know
yep.
unity is not a feeling, but that
Yeah, but
that
integration is.
yeah. Well, the
Yep,
disappearance of obstacles.
yeah. Oceanic,
Yeah,
oceanic feeling where it all blends together.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
it all works.
Yeah,
It's the force and the dark side from Star Wars.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
It really is.
Well, they're
But
one
both
and the
are
same
powerful.
thing.
But both are really powerful,
Yeah,
you know, really
Right.
powerful. So anyway,
good stuff.
yep, good stuff.
Well,
Oh,
we're coming to the end of our time together, and before we wrap up, Ron, I would like to give you a chance to share with people of how they can learn more about you and Life Yet to Live. I know you've got a
uh,
web page, you've got a
well,
newsletter.
yeah,
How can we access that?
I do a newsletter every week. If you go to the website, it's ronkastner.com, www.ronkastner.com, and you can sign up for the newsletter. And it's just one article every week, but it's stuff that matters to me. Some of it's about physical health and keeping aging at bay, um, and staying functional and vital and energetic. And some of it is this stuff and emotional stuff. And so it's just kind of like my blog and my my way of talking to the world.
So ronkastner.com.
Yep.
So I support everybody checking out Ron's webpage and the book, A Life Yet to Live, and sign up for the newsletter. And like to have you back on. As long as you're in the
Sure.
States, it's easier for us to host you.
I'm heading back to London for a few weeks, but I'll
Yeah,
be
but we'll
back.
get you this
I'll be
summer.
back in June. I'll be
Yeah.
back in June.
And grateful for your taking some time out to share what's
It's
been going on with you.
always a always a pleasure.
And for those of you who don't know Ron, or maybe don't know me or John, we just touched the surface. We
Yeah,
just skimmed the
yeah,
surface,
yeah.
but it's all good. So before we wrap up, John, any last words of wisdom or frivolity, or both?
Um, um, I'm blank. Thanks, Ron, for being on and
Thank you. Thank you,
sharing
John.
your stuff.
Sure.
Okay.
All right, well,
And you too,
gentlemen, we'll
Marty.
do it again.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
You bet. Take care.
Bye.
Oh, before I go, just to remind people who would like to check out the accountability practice that we have 4 meetings a week. They're all on Zoom. And if you'd like to experience what we've been talking about here, like to experience the accountability tree, at the end of the podcast, there'll be a list of the times and days and Zoom room addresses for you to participate. You can come to a meeting and dive in the deep end of the pool and get right into it, or you can come and just listen, whatever.
Right.
We
Yeah.
welcome anybody who would like to see what the heck these 3 guys are talking about. So everybody's welcome. And with that, we'll say goodbye.